We got a guest coming in tonight, but he is hasn't made it in as of yet. But this Friday there is a kind of a grand opening. But he's going to come in and tell us about that. But I think
Don't spoil the surprise.
but I think before he gets here, we'll just riff on some thoughts we have in the news right now. Dave posed queried a question.
It was an interesting question.
Thanks,
So
Lauren.
I guess that's my cue to share that with the audience. So here we are, 2021.
Uh-huh.
Our geopolitics could change at any moment with Russia or China now that we have a new administration.
Uh-huh.
Let's say the scenario ends up really bad and we have to draft our young generation to the front lines where, China and Russia starts using death rays and the bodies pile up. It gets bad, right? Because these are very powerful countries.
Yeah.
We don't have a huge disparity between us like we used to in the old days. So our children probably wouldn't want to participate in that. And could you blame them? So the question I posed and thought about, because we've been talking a lot about transgender rights and issues and just situations where our government is trying to help promote the gay community and I don't know, diversify. So if we end up in a situation where we're drafting our young children and they want to look for a new way to dodge the draft, what if they start getting transgender operations? Will the government still draft them anyway? And that was my thought of the day. I don't know why I had this weird thought. Maybe it was because of all our conversations and just the way the media has been tailoring the news lately to fit into transgender topics. But always on the back of my mind is this possibility for a war with China or Russia that could end up really bad for us. Now, what if they wanted to dodge the draft? I mean, you can't cross the border to China or Canada. But anyway, we'll leave that question to the audience. We have a guest,
No, he'll be in just a second.
and he'll be in just a second. So yeah, let's think about that then.
Well, I mean that is a big question. Well, the thing is first I think we would have to see them start to draft females, and thus far that hasn't been added into the selective service itinerary yet, though they have added females into combat arms. Now,
However, in some colleges, I do believe they disqualify transgender females in sports events.
Biden just passed a bill. I believe I just pulled it up. Okay. Biden to issue executive order reversing Pentagon's transgender ban. Now, I don't know if this will include that college stuff, but from what I understand, and now I haven't read this bill, but Biden is making it so that there can be no discrimination in anything tied to the government between transgender and not transgender females or males, whatever. So the concern is that female sports are going to born females. Man, I'm going to stumble over a lot of words trying to remain PC today. Born females are
We'll call them biofems.
biofems are going to be drummed out of their own sports. And that's now, granted, I haven't read the bill, and the show I watched that talked about it was a heavy centrist show. Come on in and have a seat right there.
Oh, you're just walking into the fire, man.
Yeah, it was a heavy centrist show, so they may not have it may not be I don't know.
And keep in mind, it could also go the other direction. I mean, if you're a female who just got a transgender operation as a man, then would you not be eligible for the draft if you were within that age category? I don't know. I mean, what a sticky situation it'll be if we
Well,
have to draft in the future, because I honestly think that probably some of our younger generation would go that route to get away from the death rays and the bioweapons of foreign countries if we drafted them.
yeah. Now I do know that Trump's ban on transgender in the military was kind of a ban on when you're in, or if you're going to join, you need to have all of that stuff completed before you sign up, or while you're in, you can't do it, which I understand. We're both veterans and we understand the military needs to be ready to fight. It's a crucial job. They run on low numbers anyway. And the job isn't like, oh, one guy's going to have to lift 5 extra whatevers. The job is you're putting numbers against numbers in a game of death. So you can't lose numbers out to someone having complications or recovery. But
no, I know they didn't draft the best of the best in Vietnam. It wasn't the cream of the crop on top at all times. So
they drafted the poor.
they can't afford transgender operations anyway, can they?
Well, they're the ones that couldn't afford college.
I thought it was just by age. I didn't know it was. They did it by demographic, like by.
What do you
poor?
mean?
Like you said, they drafted the poor.
Well,
It was a lottery system by Social Security.
It was a lottery system by your selective service, and if you were wealthy, you got out of it by going to college, or well, some of them fled, but on average, it was the poor, the people who couldn't afford to get entrance into college or another institute that would give them a waiver.
They weren't doing anything else at the time. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, they were working, having babies. I mean,
yeah.
but yeah, but it ended up boiling down that the majority of who went over there, the majority of draftees that went over there fit in the lower economic demographics.
Sure.
We're talking 85, 90%.
Yeah.
Because the others went to college. I mean, rates in college attendance skyrocketed during the Vietnam War. I'm not saying correlation, causation, whatever, but it happened.
So if they could prove that they were going to college and they didn't have to go?
Yeah, it happened quite often.
What if they did something like that now, where if you could prove you were working, you didn't have to go? How fast people would.
Well, working, yeah. If you proved you were working, I don't see.
Or looking for work.
Yeah.
If that happened.
Well, working, they didn't care about that. They'd strip you out and then write bills on the backside that says your workplace has to hold your job. For some reason, college slipped in because I think, my honest opinion is, politicians didn't want their sons going to Vietnam. So they slipped that bill in, sent their kids to college. And
yeah, I heard was it John Kerry that there's a story there where he somehow missed the draft.
No, John Kerry was he was in the Navy.
I thought he was Canadian. Was John Kerry in the Navy? No kidding.
Okay,
Yeah.
there was something there, but one of the was it Biden?
Well,
One of those guys.
That explains a lot
skipped
about
the
John
draft.
Kerry.
Well, no. Now there's a couple of ways the draft. Now, Bill Clinton avoided the draft. In another way, George W. Bush avoided it as well by using. This would be an extreme stretch for me to say I know this factually, but an accusation is he used it through knowledge of his father and joined a National Guard unit that would get him out of.
That's right. That's the story.
Going over.
Yeah.
But John Kerry was in the Navy. I think there was a big to-do about him where he came back from Vietnam and spoke out against Vietnam in a Senate hearing. But some of the words he said was extremely disparaging on his fellow servicemen over there, which is why he gets kind of a bad rap.
So who knows? Okay, so that's where the stories come from.
Yes.
He was a coward. And
he was,
everything
I
else.
believe he was a lieutenant in the Navy, which would be a captain in the Navy. For the traverse over into the Army or the Air Force, that'd be a captain.
Hmm.
But I believe he's an 03 and got out as an 03. But anyways, so we're on. All right. Now you're from Grantsville, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you're a couple years younger than me, but I grew up with some of your older relatives. We've got a young Palmer in the house. Palmers, you can date them back to inventing how to harvest solar salt all the
That's
way
true.
up to,
I'm impressed.
yeah.
You do your research.
Yeah, I grew up out there.
Well-
And I work at a salt plant.
What is solar salt?
Salt that is made through evaporation.
Okay.
Yeah. And then your family also ties in and runs Adobe Rock.
Right.
So you guys are well established in the community, but you're also
Yeah.
starting another. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about the endeavor you're starting.
Yeah, well, I'm the youngest of the Palmer family that had anything to do with Adobe Rock. I have no connection now with Adobe Rock other than my brothers.
Yeah, you didn't want to run equipment.
I actually hated running equipment. That's it was rough.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just had a hard time with my mind. There was just not enough stimulation, I guess, with my environment to keep my mind occupied. So yeah, I was born and raised in Grantsville. I was born in 1983, so I'm I think 38 now. You
Hmm.
know, when you get above 35 or so, you can't really
Yeah.
remember.
it doesn't matter then. It's
Yeah.
all you're on
You
the
only know the fives, the 40, the 35, the 40, the 45, and then the 50.
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
So I grew up in the family gravel pit. I didn't know my grandpa very well that worked on the salt harvester.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up in Grantsville. Probably, let's see, I was in and out of the gravel pit all the time, getting fired and quitting, and couldn't hold down a job anywhere else. Really kind of was pretty rebellious in high school, stirred up a lot of stuff, hurt some people, did some things that I'm okay with it now, but it was, I definitely didn't go on the path that I was hoping to at the
Yeah.
time. Eventually got into drug addiction, spent some years in addiction, and was able to get out of that. And then I went on a mission for the LDS Church, came home, got married, and I went to North Dakota and worked in the oil fields for 7 years. And then recently just moved back to Grantsville last August.
Okay.
So
Go ahead and put the headphones on so you can hear yourself while you talk and kind of.
I'm gonna do that.
But yeah, so now if I remember, you're about the same age as my younger brother Vince.
I did not know Vince was your brother.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for Vince.
Yeah, Vince is a good guy. You guys you guys all ran around in the same group.
Okay, I get it now. So you're Jared, you're his
Yeah.
older brother. Okay.
Yeah, I'm Jared, and by the way, we didn't get your name, but it's Randy Palmer.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Nice to meet you, Randy.
Yeah, nice to meet
You
you.
want to?
this is David.
I
want a
actually-
water?
I had a water. I left it in the bathroom, but yeah, my mouth's going to be dry here.
Now,
Are you used to public speaking?
I enjoy it. Yeah. I don't mind it.
So you can do long stints, or like what's the longest stint of public speaking that you've done so far?
Public speaking, the longest stint,
Right.
I would say it was not a good experience, but probably 30, 40 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that's long enough to get your mouth dry
Yeah.
and you start to cough a little bit once in a
Yeah,
while.
you start to smack your lips and
And tomorrow, the day after, you wake up and your throat's sore.
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so Your Honor, now you, I think that's real interesting that you went into addiction, and then from addiction, you found your way to recovery, then to a mission.
Yeah.
That's the opposite of most missionaries,
But did you
Kind of
find your way to
backwards.
recovery, or did someone help you find your way to recovery?
I that's an interesting question. And the way I word it is I feel like I grew out of it. There's a lot of people out there that will tell you like addiction is a progressive disease, and if you don't seek treatment or if you don't get treatment, it'll always just get worse. And maybe that is the truth, because I did seek treatment, but I just woke up one day and I'd had it. I was 23 years old and like, this sucks.
So you woke up one day and said, I'm done with this, but you And you also sought treatment just to get through the rough times. Where did you
Right.
seek treatment at?
So that's actually where I work now. This office we're opening, it's MATR Behavioral Health,
Yeah, MATR.
MATR, and the acronym is MATR. And I don't remember exactly what it stands for. Something of the owners, the two ladies that started MATR. One of them, her name is Janie.
I've actually got it pulled up right here.
What it stands for, I forget what it is, and I should know it, but it's she spent some time in maximum security solitary confinement in the Utah State Prison in the 70s. And when she was in there, they started giving her a piece of paper and she started rewriting the program. Like the guards got so close to her. I guess I don't know if close is the right word. You know, you have to kind of be careful. Like there was a time where she couldn't even make eye contact or she would be disciplined. Like you're not allowed to make eye contact. But she would tell stories about just by the way that keys would jingle, she would be able to tell which guard was working that night because the way he would walk down the hall. Anyway, they started giving her a piece of paper and she started to rewrite this program. So when they got out, when she eventually met Linda and started MATR 10, 15 years later, they were looking for a name and they came up with MATR.
Yeah, it's not saying right off the level what it means. I'm sure if I dig around in here, I'd
Measures
find
of effect relatively theory or something.
it. Yeah.
Basically,
Okay.
they were saying, hey, this is what the book says. It's theory, but there's measures of effect. It's debatable, and we're going to treat the individual on a personal basis, not just the system, and put the book at them.
There's not a flow chart to treat addiction. Each individual has to maneuver that individually.
And it's very different for
Right.
everybody.
Oh yeah. Well, and you got to find the trigger. Why are they using? Are they using because childhood trauma? Are they using because they're bored? Because, why are they using? You got to find that trigger and find out how to work that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys you're now MATR, the one is down, where's it at? It's in
Mount Pleasant, Utah.
Yeah, in Mount Pleasant.
Yep.
And they're opening up one up here, right?
Yeah. So they've been established in Mount Pleasant for 25 years. And they're at a point now where Janie wants to take her material and spread it and help more people in more places.
Good.
So I've wanted to work with them since I graduated MATR in 2005. We've always talked.
Okay.
We've always had these long conversations, and she's been a mentor of mine, kind of helping me through my journey. Because I grew up in the gravel business, and that was my default. When I had my kids, I just defaulted to I have to provide for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start getting used to the oil field money, and before you know it, then you have a lifestyle, and then you have to match the lifestyle. And so it was a journey for me to figure out how to. I just sold my semi truck actually 6 months ago. But
Was you driving truck? Is that what you were doing?
I was trying not to. When I was in North Dakota, I was at the point where I wasn't driving anymore. It was super depressing for me. I said, it just wasn't. There wasn't any amount of money that you could have paid me to keep doing it.
So driving the truck was depressing?
Yeah.
Why?
I think that I don't know. I think I needed more human interaction.
Were you thinking about the past a lot while you're behind the wheel?
I was thinking about everything a lot while I was behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Constant. And it was just nonstop. I mean, there was some of the runs I would do were into Canada. So if you can imagine here, I would leave at 5 a.m. I would go to Wendover. I'd pick up a load and I would take it to Ibapaw. I would pick one up at Skull Valley and I would take it to Rush Valley. And we would do 2 of those a day. So there were sometimes 3, 4, 5 hours where I didn't get out of the truck. And I felt like my thoughts were just bouncing off the windshield, coming back at me. And there's only so many podcasts and motivational books you can listen to before you just.
Yeah.
I'm sure that guys that have mastered the technique that drive over the road now and provide for their families, it's a learned art.
Or they go crazy.
Yeah.
I've worked around truck drivers and I've known quite a few of them in my life, and I shouldn't say they go crazy. They really desire to express their opinions at every given chance because they thirst for that reaction and interaction. And they spend multiple hours arguing with themselves. So they get a pretty
Yeah.
honed argument, even though it may be wrong at times.
Yeah. It's an interesting job, you know. It's one of the most sustainable. Having a CDL is one of the most sure way of knowing that you can find employment in the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we all take for granted. If the trucks were to stop within 24 hours, 36 hours, all the shelves would be empty.
Oh yeah,
It's crazy
You got
how
3
much
days.
we depend on them, but yet how much little. That's the other thing about driving. You're an instant dumbass. You pull in somewhere and you get treated like you're 2 inches
yeah.
tall. You disrespected everywhere you go. I mean,
yeah.
I would pull into these places and I would analyze the situation, and I could hear my dad's voice. You know, growing up, he was pretty critical. Why'd you park there? Why'd you do it this way? So I would pull in, set my brakes, do everything, allowing for everything that I thought needed to happen. You'd walk into this shack and this guy would chew you out like, you're just a dumb truck driver. You know?
They would a lot, and but there are a lot of other pressures for those guys too, because a lot of the drivers now, it's very common that English is their fourth language, and they don't practice it, and they take that out on you, and so it gets tough.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyways, I want to talk about this matter. I want to hear about, you've got an opening coming up this Friday.
Yeah, so about 8 months ago, I finally partnered up with Janie and Linda that own the MATR in Mount Pleasant, and we started an outpatient office here. So that's in the Aspire building.
Okay,
You know where the Aspire building is?
I do not.
It's right next to the food bank. It's right across the street from the DMV.
Okay.
There's like a green canopy thing. Anyway,
So you got to take a left at the hospital when you're going towards 80, right? And then
no, the DMV, not the driver's license division.
Yeah, the DMV down there in the county building. And the Aspire building is the glass, the building to the north of it that's all glass.
Right across the street from the big brick county building.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you're talking
There's a bus
across
stop.
Main Street,
On the other side.
by the old bank, and
Right. Remember where there used to be an old grocery store when we were younger? Back in the back, there was like a little mom and pop grocery store.
I'm trying to remember the name of it.
That parking lot is kind of shared with, there's a couple of different buildings there, but the Aspire building is right next to the food bank. That's the easiest way to remember it, and the new thrift store.
Okay.
The Caldwell Law is right next to my door, but it's like a strip mall in there. There's like 17 different
Used
businesses.
to have Peak Firearms there.
Right. That's where my office is. And there was a job sourcing company that was there. I want to say Oasis, but it wasn't Oasis. It was anyway, I remember the name.
Yeah. But yeah.
So we got licensed by the state. We're JRI certified, which means we can handle justice cases. We work with the judges and the courts and the jails. I'm looking to get into the jail to offer some courses, but right now with COVID, everything's kind of on the shutdown. So yeah, we've been open for a few months now, legally certified and licensed. I just wanted to I'm actually kind of impressed with Tooele County that you can call the Chamber of Commerce and you can set up a ribbon cutting, and they'll come and do it for free, and they'll promote it a little bit. And Lucky's will make a cake with your logo on it.
Yeah. That's
and one of the pizza places in town brings you pizza. So I wanted to do that for some publicity, just kind of let people know that we're there, because for the longest time, Valley Mental Health has had kind of the most of the work in the Valley. And we're, there's options here. We work with everybody, though. Sometimes it's not a good fit for us. So
yeah, well, and if there's just one option, they get overwhelmed and then they get stuck in a rut.
Yeah,
it's better to have honestly, competing avenues.
Right.
Competition makes excellence.
So is it a free market system, or is this we take your health insurance? Or let's say I have an addiction. Let's say I shoot up or something, and I want to get help. I come to you guys. How does the pricing for such treatment even work?
Yeah. So first of all, most people that come to us, a judge told them they
Mm.
had to.
They've gone through the drug court system.
Yeah. Well, they've been ordered to get like an assessment because the
Okay.
judge can't diagnose their disease or their treatment, so they're ordered to get an assessment. If somebody comes into me that's not working, we'll do an assessment with them and we can apply and get them on Medicaid and get them into classes within a week.
Okay.
So if I can get them onto like targeted adult Medicaid, which is called TAM, even if they get a job the next month, they can work and they're locked in for a year.
So that's a Medicaid assistance that's geared towards their recovery.
Right.
Okay, good.
It's something that, I mean, the idea is right that you pitch in, you cover it for them, and then they recover, they start working, they start paying taxes. We have a better state.
Mm-hmm.
On a county level, there's actually a lot of cool stuff that's happening that is making a difference with the homeless population, and we could get into that as if you guys want to. It's
I've seen
Yeah.
so many homeless people all over the
crazy,
county
right?
lately. It's,
More than I ever remember before.
Ever, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
get into it. What are you noticing with the homeless population?
So I remember when I left Utah in 2011. I mean, some of that before that was kind of a blur. I was just a punk kid, not really paying attention, right? But when I left Utah in 2011, I don't remember ever seeing homeless people. And maybe there was a few that would come through town, I-80, Lake Point area. I'd see a couple people hitchhiking here and there.
yeah, Blake Point, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe even into Stansbury. And I honestly, I don't remember seeing. You'd see some of the. I don't know how to classify them. You'd see it. Some of the vagabonds wander through Tooele and Grantsville back then, but never like
this past 2 years
we're seeing now.
has been a transforming moment for Tooele County. I've been here since 2008. I don't remember seeing homeless people.
So part of that is because when they, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But these past 2 years, I've seen things that almost remind me kind of like Salt Lake City. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No, part of that is because when they cleaned up the block, I had a friend that was homeless for a while, slamming heroin and living on the block. That's what they call it in Salt Lake City.
They're at Liberty Park.
Liberty Park area, and there was a soup kitchen there and stuff in the winter. When they cleaned that area up, they loaded them on buses and they brought people out here.
Mm.
They took them into North Willow Canyon in Grantsville and up Settlement Canyon in Tooele.
And they dropped them off in the canyons.
They let them go in the canyons. And I can say let them go like that's kind of a
Catch and release.
catch and release. It was let's spread it out because the citizens, the business owners downtown Salt Lake said we'd had enough.
So who did the rounding?
The state of Utah.
Right.
Yeah.
The hard part with that is where Liberty Park had managed them for a long time, and they had a soup kitchen, and so they probably the places that have built up to help the homeless knew how to reach out to them there. When they spread them out, Tooele has had very little, if no, or maybe they did, and I just don't know about it. But did Tooele have the means to
No.
care for that?
Absolutely not. In fact, that's so recently, like since I've moved back to Tooele, I've kind of been going through a shift of looking at the homeless and actually like feeling compassion for them and realizing that, not some, I guess I'll tell her story. So there's a lady named Carol Hallowell who started a homeless shelter. And I say shelter, I need to phrase it differently. It's not a shelter. It's a program. It's a development program for homeless people in St. George called Switchpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Well, her story is pretty cool. She was in the real estate business in, I want to say Washington, and the market crashed. The housing market crashed, and I actually knew her husband because it got so bad. He came to North Dakota and started driving truck in the oil fields because it was the only thing they could find. Well, when they were in Washington, they were like, they had this experience where all these people that used to be their friends on the upper class started to be rude to them. And they were like, these are my friends. This is how you guys are going to treat us because we went through a financial downturn. So they kind of got frustrated, and one day they decided to move, and she threw a dart at a map and said, wherever it hits, we're going to move there. And this is a true story. It hit St. George, Utah. So they moved to St. George, Utah. She was down on her luck driving around in a new city. It was raining, and she saw a homeless guy in a wheelchair. And she pulled over and she said, what are you doing out here in the rain? And they started talking. She said, get in my car. She found out the only reason he was homeless is because he lost his wallet 5 years ago. He was a vet. He was entitled to compensation. And she made it her goal by the end of the day to find this guy, get him a driver's license, and get him housing. And within 2 or 3 days, they had his benefits restored. He ended up getting the surgery that he needed. Everything was covered. He had a place to live. And he lived as one of their best friends for the next 6 years until I believe he died from predetermined causes So she went through this shift where she was kind of in this high society real estate to the market crashing to this process of humility and going through this process and finding this homeless guy. And it led her to work she started a nonprofit called Switch Point, and she started working with the city of St. George, and they developed a homeless shelter up there. But it's not necessarily a shelter. It's a program where they teach them skills and they provide resources and they get them into housing. And they do get some people that just come through. You know, when you brought up, I don't know how to pronounce it, vagabonds? Vagabonds.
Yeah.
Some people just
It's an
enjoy
older word.
Some people just enjoy that lifestyle.
They choose it.
They like it.
Yeah, I've met a few in my life. They're, homeless hobos are the same way. Train riders, that's their life. They don't do that because, on one spectrum you've got the mental issues that encompass some of homeless. You've got addictions encompass. Generally those are the two majorities of your homeless people. Are mental issues and addictions, which a recovery center would help out that a lot. That'd shave half of it off. And then you've got vagabonds and hobos, which that's the lifestyle they choose. They carry everything they want on their back, and they don't want to accept any kind of assistance. They'll accept assistance, but they're like, don't try to tie me into a house or a shelter, because I summer here and I winter here, and they live a lifestyle.
And most of all, I'm going to do what I want when I want. So thanks for your offer, but
yeah,
I can't commit to that. Because if somebody stops in the morning and they're going to California, I might go with them.
And that's getting harder and harder to do. I remember when I first came out to Utah, I had a van, and I'd live in the van on my journey out to Utah. And probably for some time after, because it took me a little while to get established out here to actually provide a roof over the head and whatnot. But I was by myself. My wife was back in New York, and I was trying to establish out here. And, you pull the van over, and it wasn't uncommon for some cop to, knock on the door, harass you a little bit, find out what you're doing. I've heard stories about people who want to help homeless people in Florida, and they take them out into the forest, and they kind of create this little tent city, and the city thrived a little bit. They'd create gardens and whatnot. But I don't know if you've ever had a liberal tell you, hey, if you want to live that lifestyle, why don't you just go out into the woods and live that lifestyle? You can't really do that.
Yeah,
because the system will stop you.
You're regulated to where you have to. Property is bought in this size. That's the smallest you can get. Houses have to be this size. That's the smallest it can be. So you're regulated out of those like tiny house villages that a lot of people want to do. And I think we need to hit that regulation and then defeat it that way. You might be able to say, get underneath a good governor or a good mayor, and they'll say, yeah, we'll let you build that tent city or that tiny house village, whatever. But then a new mayor comes in and says, no, we want to. And so you can't live with that kind of whiplash.
It's definitely challenging in this society.
And yeah, it is interesting. It's like at some point I mean, I accepted a long time ago that the government's never going to be able to handle the needs of this society.
Oh, we have a saying on this show. Governments only do one thing. What is that, Dave?
Turn gold into shit.
Turn gold into shit.
I was thinking of Ronald Reagan. I wasn't sure which one it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, it goes along the same lines.
So, going back to Carol, she got a call from a preacher, a pastor in Tooele. Said, "Hey, I think we need some help out here, because there's these. I mean, I know right now at the pizza place and the dumpster at night, there's guys that go through there to eat,
Mm-hmm.
right? So she came out, and I don't know her. I'm talking like we go way back. I don't know her yet, but we're gonna work together. I can almost guarantee it.
Good.
So she, long story short, they bought the Harris Elementary School that's abandoned,
Mm-hmm.
and there's going to be 70 units for a homeless program, like starting right away.
Good. See, I've heard about that, and I've been asking everyone that comes through here that centers around these subjects. I think your headphone cord's hung up on something over there.
Usually with those kind of projects, you end up like, we found asbestos in the walls. Or
I've been
something,
asking
you
about.
know?
shut it down for some stupid
Yeah,
reason.
I've been like Harris Elementary. I heard something 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, that Harris Elementary is going to be partitioned off in some ways, but they're going to put some, either a shelter or some beds or something in there for the homeless. And I kept hearing about that. And
It's fallen through a few times.
okay.
Like another program came out here and tried to buy it, and something happened, and it fell through. I think it's worked out the way it was supposed to, so they're going to add on to it. It's not a homeless shelter. It's a community resource center.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing it right. In fact, people all over the state are using this as a model, even from other states, are wanting to know how they're going to do this, because it's basically going to be a little society in there where they're going to have like switch bucks where they give them chores and they pay them to do the chores. Look, they're only doing 70 units because the goal there isn't a shelter. It's not to house them there.
Mm-hmm.
It's to work with the housing development to get them in their own housing as soon as possible. So the idea is to get them in, help them with that documentation, the driver's license, the resumes, the skills they need. There's actually a lot of resources in Tooele and in Utah that I had no idea even existed. Small business development, things that if you're trying to do something, you can find a resource in Tooele or Salt Lake that will help you with it. There's grant money available. There's so much stuff available that I think we take for granted in this country. I had some buddies try to go to what island was it? They tried to go to some island and start a trucking company,
Mm-hmm.
and they'd had experience in the trucking company for years. And when he got back, he's like, "Man, I'm so thankful for he's like, I'll never complain about taxes again." Well, maybe he will a couple times, he said, but the regulation we have and the systems we have in place are such a benefit for our system and our structures.
Well, and down there, you got to grease so many palms. Anywhere else,
yeah, it was just super.
you just got to grease your way to success.
Yeah.
So they're building more of a campus there.
Yeah. It's
More of a, yeah, I would call it a campus. They're going in there to achieve a goal set to move on with life.
and anybody can, it's not just for a homeless population. It's for, there's going to be help with John Gossett from the Life's Worth Living Foundation for suicide prevention.
Good.
So they're going to, I'm sure we're going to offer some courses. I also do interventions. So I'm going to be working with them and going in there and saying, "Hey, we want to work with you for the cognitive behavioral therapy, for the stuff we do at MATR, but also for interventions, anything we can do." It's going to be a resource for the whole community, though. Anybody that lives here can go in there to get things that they need, to get help with stuff that they don't have. And the way they're doing it, it's going to be self-sustainable as well, because they're also opening several businesses and I don't know how you do that with a not-for-profit. Like, the older I get, the more I want a non-profit organization. And that goes back to some of the shift I told you I was going through, like just looking at people differently. But this organization, they started like the right next to the right next to the food bank, there's a thrift store.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they're looking at they're going to be doing like 5 or 6 other things in the valley that are going to give the people there places to work as well as provide income.
So is the thrift store tied into that
yeah,
system?
It's the same
Okay.
organization.
So kind of like how Deseret Industries hires people who need to
Job training and
yeah. Oh,
And then they get out and they can buy their $500,000 house because that's what the average price is now.
Well,
Right?
that's a whole nother issue. So housing is probably one of the biggest obstacles, because even if they get them cleaned up, get them healthy, try to get them in somewhere,
How do you afford it?
we're in a huge there's no house, there's nowhere to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's something that has to be.
That is a hard part. And I don't know, I'd like to dig in deeper on why the housing market looks like it does. It's got to me it screams there's got to be a supply and demand issue, is why there's got to be a bottleneck in the supply, which makes the demand explode, is why that price is there. We've talked before that just to build a house, they've got to go through all the regulatory steps and paying off all the inspectors, so that even before you touch a shovel to the earth, you've got a, $5,000 bill before you've touched a shovel. And who's going to want to absorb $5,000 into a $100,000 loan right off the bat? Whereas you can justify it more if that loan is, say, $250,000.
Yeah.
I've lived in a tent city quite a many times in my life. And I really think that Utah is in the situation where they need to make some decent tent cities. And, these people that are struggling, give them a freaking break. Let them house in a tent.
What about
just like we did in the military?
What about the depot?
Yeah.
10,000 residents.
No, there's so many wonderful buildings there that could be rehabbed.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, huh? Just sitting
Well,
there.
If I didn't work there, I'd gripe about it. Because
and you've got
I work there, I won't.
the old Allen lid. Why couldn't that be made into a temporary, throw 500 or I don't know, throw probably 100 bunk beds in there and wall lockers and make it a, stay the night place or something. There's a lot of things that could be done, but I love this Harris Elementary step.
Yeah, you almost have to ask what's the goal, though, because she's very, Carol from the podcast I listen to, she's very sensitive. This is not a shelter, right? Ultimately, when it comes to the housing crisis, like you look at Tooele County, it's how do you manage the growth? Because you have these people who are anti-growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I grew up in the gravel business.
They don't like you guys, do
we
they?
want to bulldoze everything and build
Right.
stuff everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But since I've been living here and been in some of the traffic, I'm like, this whole thing went down with the church and the temple next to Verges, and there's some people out there that are very, very vocal and actually have done really good for their own purposes to stop houses from being built. Same with the Kennecott development, which had nothing to do with Adobe Rock, but it was Adobe Ranch or whatever. So it's interesting because how do we need to, our end goal is not to just get them at the depot sleeping. It's to get them into a house where they have a little grass and a dog and a job,
Mm-hmm.
where they get that dignity of paying their rent or paying their mortgage. And, they have 5-acre lots is what they were wanting in certain areas in Erta. I understand both sides of it, but we need to get together and say, okay, where, like, for example, Lake Point or on the outskirts of Grantsville by Walmart DC, why can't we build apartments there?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand that. Why can't we build
And Little
high
Vegas.
density housing all over that area?
I think, like the Marine style military type barracks where you got one guy sleeping up here and you're down here. You know what? I don't know. If I was a single guy, I didn't have to worry about family members. You guys, you have children. I'm married. We have to have a house. We have to provide. But these people on the streets, they got themselves. They don't need 5 acres. They probably don't even need a 3-bedroom apartment. A bunk and a locker is probably all they do need. And there's really not many places that provide that minimal level here in the US of A, because I think that brings down real estate value or some sort of deep state thought process like that. But that is the solution. We have to have some sort of a location where they can pay $100 a month or something, where they get a bunk in a locker, a foot locker, and they have the group showers or whatever. It's not inhumane. I've had to deal with that most of my life, and I kind of feel like society is very selfish here, because you try to suggest something like that, and I'll tell you what, there'll be mass riots out on the streets of Tooele, because I don't know why. I don't
Vine
know.
Street will burn. Yeah.
It would.
Well, we've always got a water argument here out in the county. That's always an argument. Water. How do we get water for all this and water? And after this winter, I'm agreeing with him, because we got no water this winter. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Way to keep the hope alive.
right? I know, right?
we all had lots of buddies who got together and rented a bigger place or bought a house right out of high school. I'm wondering if maybe, I know I'd have to do research. Is there a regulatory stop or a risk stop for people to build like a, a single person apartment place? Where it is set up where there's maybe a kitchen for every 4 units, or one bathroom for every 4 units or something like that. Maybe there's I don't know if there's regulatory stoppage on that, or whether there is a developer is averse to the risk that comes with that. I don't know.
I don't either. I know there's the jobs here. Like this wouldn't be like the projects. It's not just come and live and hang out. It would be like there's the thing I truly believe in, which has been fun for me coming back to Tooele County and working with. One of the things that opening this office with MATR's allowed me to do is meet a lot of people from the community. I mean, just like you guys, just coming here. I feel like everything that we face, these challenges we face, aren't that bad. I feel like we, as a community on a local level, I think we could figure this out in 5 or 10 years. I don't think it's insurmountable. It's just getting the right people together at the right time and making the moves. The resources are here. The work is here. The jobs are here. This valley's going to grow. I mean, I believe we're going to see we're going to see houses in the entire valley.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of time, but with the outpatient office there, and the reason I bring up the Switch Point and the Harris Elementary School is because I'm looking more at the long-term vision of Tooele County.
So you're here for the long haul.
Yeah, and I guess I'm seeing some of that, the bigger picture of how do we make an impact on this valley instead of just how do I get a referral or how do I get a client in the door. So I feel like those are, when I sit down in a group and I'm working with 10 or 12 individuals and we're going through techniques and we're doing recovery work and doing techniques, I like it. That's the best part about what I do. But if it's only 10 or 12 of us, and when they leave there, if they don't have the work they need or the support they need or the housing they need, it's a little bit disheartening at times.
So we have some comments in the threads here. You want to take one? There's a good one right here. We got Laura Harris.
Yeah, she asked, so you have an addict that wants to join. What does the problem look like start to finish? How do they sign up? What are they offered as far as help? And is there therapy involved?
Yeah, great question. I'm assuming you meant what does the program look like, right? Not
yeah,
the problem.
The program. Well, one, you say you get a lot of people that get assigned to you through the court system. But let's say someone on the street is seeking therapy.
Yeah. So let me just to be clear, the court system doesn't assign them. They're going to put us on a list and say, here's your options.
Oh, okay.
So if they choose to come into us to get an assessment, so that's usually what happens. But if somebody just walks in and says, hey, I'm struggling, what do I need to do? We'd start with an assessment. We'd look at, do they have insurance? Can we get them on Medicaid? If we can't, what's the cash price? Can we figure it out with their work schedule? So we do groups Monday and Tuesday from 10 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, and Wednesday as well, then Thursday evenings, and then Friday during the day. So there's 5 hours a group, 5 days a week. They would start with an assessment, and then a therapist would review the assessment, go through it, make a recommendation for treatment. And we offer intensive outpatient, which is like the cream of the crop.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most time. It's where you're going to get your most benefit. But there's a lot of other courses too. Like if somebody gets a DUI with the county, they're almost always assigned a Prime for Life course. So we do a Prime for Life course. There's anger management. There's thinking errors. There's other courses that we don't do domestic violence. I don't know if anybody in Tooele does, but we don't do that yet. So essentially what it would look like is they would just come into the office consistently, work around their work schedule, and come in and start. So Janie, when she started MATR, before she started the MATR, she'd been through her own experiences with the Utah State Prison and her own addictions. And she went and got certified as a hypnotherapist, like to be able to perform surgery and to be able to hypnotize people and help them, when they're basically unconscious. And when she started learning about how our brains work, she decided that she didn't want to hypnotize people. She wanted to teach people how their brains work.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very big on like NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, the words we use. If you walk into the inpatient facility in Mount Pleasant and you say the word try or but, they'll run you out of there. All the clients will, don't say try. What does try mean? To the subconscious, try means nothing really. I'll try to be here at 7:30 for the podcast, guys. How would you have felt sitting here? He said, I'll try. What does that mean, right?
Yeah.
And then the word, just so basically to break down without getting too far down the rabbit hole, they're really big on how the brain works and how the body, the subconscious is stored throughout the entire body. That's why when you want to walk, when you want to talk about things, when you walk, it's easier to talk. It's why when you're in a conversation and something comes up that's kind of sensitive to you, why your foot starts to twitch and you sometimes can't stop it, or body language, why things move, because our subconscious is stored throughout our entire body. So there's actually like techniques. There's a walking technique where there's a series of questions, and it's designed to eliminate mental blocks, experiences that we had when we were younger. Something happened, so you decide, I don't want to feel that anymore, so you pushed it out or you avoided it. A lot of language, though, changing the words you use, I would say, is the main thing. And then basic tools and techniques for dealing with life's emotion, with the emotion and stress of life. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So are you guys advertised anywhere if people are looking for you guys?
So MATR Behavioral Health has a website. That's for the main inpatient.
Mm-hmm.
I just got our location set up on Google Maps, and actually I just searched Tooele County addiction treatment, and we were like the second on the list, and I haven't done anything other than just get some referral or get some on Google Maps, got some traction there.
So you're just kind of getting the grinding to get set up out of the way.
Yeah, we're just
established.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the office for about 8 months, but with licensing with COVID took forever.
Isn't there what is it called? Alano Club, isn't that right there in that same kind of
the 12-step meetings and stuff?
Yes.
Yep.
So they're right there close to you as well. Do you guys work with them much, or?
I'm familiar with Holly's a friend of mine that bought that building, Holly Vincent, and she runs those meetings out of there, and they're actually doing some really cool stuff too. That building is going to be focused on recovery and treatment as well. So yeah, that whole area is kind of like that whole kind of business, or that whole building structure is kind of an area where people can come and get resources and help. The community resource center is right there next to the food bank.
Good.
So
sounds like it's like a bazaar of help. It's like there's this group, there's that group, and they're all located centrally right there in that area where you could just help each other advertise.
An assistant strip mall. All right. And so Friday, you've got an open house,
Correct.
10 to 2. People come down, see what you got going on. Maybe you'll have some people show up that are looking for assistance, or maybe relatives of people who they would like to maybe get an intervention going with you.
Yeah.
Now, your interventions, how do those work?
So,
Like if I said, hey, my buddy Dave is a crack addict,
yeah.
Probably is.
do you come down and do you like,
Put
we've
him in
all
the
seen
trunk.
him on TV, but how does it work?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked. So, when I was driving truck and I was praying. Like I prayed one day, I was crying. That's just one of those good ones where I just snot running from my nose. And I'm holding, you guys probably think I was like the craziest truck driver on the road, but it was a very emotional thing for me after 2-3 years of doing it every day. Like I knew I needed to be doing what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a struggle. It was as big as a struggle as getting off drugs was. It was hard to find that, that to be able to provide for my family and work and switch industries like
Taking a big leap.
a total shift. And I wasn't willing to burn the ships at the time. Looking back, I probably could have done that 5-10 years ago and I would have been fine. But the intervention TV show, that's the Johnson model. And that is exactly the wrong way to do an intervention. I've tried that on some buddies.
Now, that's the one with that Dr. Drew Pensky, right?
No, I mean, they might be related. This was on A&E years ago,
Okay.
and they would follow them around with a camera, some of the lowest points of their lives, right? And then they would lie to them. And then they would say, we're just going to have a grand finale and tell you thanks for the show or whatever. And then they would stage an intervention. And they would tell them, come over to grandma's for a birthday party.
And that's where they do like a surprise. Everyone reads a sheet, tells you how
Surprise.
terrible you've been to them through your addiction. And
Yeah, it's such an illusion too. It's such a false premise because it's
well, that would chase them, you think, deeper into that need to self-medicate, right?
yeah, I don't know how to do it, but if you guys could help me, I would like to do what do they call reaction videos. I would like to do some YouTube videos where we go through those shows like frame by frame and just talk about it and read the body language, because everything about that show is wrong in my opinion.
Yeah, we should pick one apart.
Yeah, could you help me set up I don't know how to do the screen and stuff.
Yeah.
He
So-
knows a lot about podcasts.
Yeah. So that's the Johnson model. And hey, for a while, I'm not knocking those guys. They actually, when I got trained in the Arise model, there was actually a representative there from the intervention TV show.
Uh-huh.
So the Arise model that I do is an invitational model. So we would say, hey, Dave, the family's getting together next Tuesday. We're going to talk about the health of our family. Because in the Johnson model, it's like, hey, you come in here, you've got an addiction, we're fine, you go get help. And then reality is it's the family's addiction. It's not just Billy Bob's. So with the Arise model, it's invitational. Even if the addicted loved one doesn't show up, we still do the meetings, and I do a 6-month contract.
So you acknowledge the environment, not the individual specifically, but you kind of branch it out to the environment, not just focusing on one person.
Yeah, almost without exception, unless somebody's living, and even in those situations, unless they're completely detached from the family unit, completely just sustaining their addiction on their own. But that's very rarely the case. Almost always, every individual in their circle of influence is affecting that addiction. There's a saying I like to say that if your addicted loved one is still affecting you, you are still affecting them.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that they're not dead. Everything you say to them, like they still feel, they still think, they still observe your life, they still watch, they're still wanting to do better, right? So the intervention model with the Arise model is it's a gradually escalating. We come in and say, okay, one of the first things we do is shift the family perspective off of one person. And I do that with some family history where we go back generations, and there's different colors for addiction. There's different colors for mental illness. There's colors for transitions, for wartime scenarios. Any loss or trauma or grief that was never dealt with, never resolved, gets a color. And I go back 2 or 3 generations, and by the end of that 30-minute little experiment, when I look at the family and say, now tell me, who here needs help? And there's this board just plastered with colors, right? Everybody's gone through stuff and the whole family's really in need of healing. And then we just start by putting, okay, well, why don't we start with addiction if that's what you guys want to do? The family runs the program. I really just facilitate the meetings. But then we take the addicted loved one out of the circle and we put, let's say, addiction in the circle. And that person, Billy Bob or Dave or whoever, becomes part of the board of directors. And we essentially meet together weekly, sometimes daily, sometimes every other week. But we meet together in an open and honest communication over the course of 6 months. And it's a debate. Okay, you don't want to go to rehab. We know you're struggling. What are you willing to do? Well, I'll get up at 6 a.m. every day this week. Okay, great. And sometimes that's all we leave with. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then next week, how did we go? How did it go? And over the course of time, the family learns how sick the individual really is, or the individual starts to get better. But it goes both ways, because they found that most parents rejected the idea of a Johnson intervention too. Because if someone's living with you and if you're helping them and you just come in and say, hey, I'm going to help you, but all you have to do is change everything instantly. And we're just going to go in there and rip the Band-Aid off. You're enabling stop and stop now and tear the Band-Aid off. That's like, wait a minute. Because their basic instincts as parents and as individuals, it goes against, that's not the way we learn and grow. That's not the way we change. It doesn't happen like that. It's a process and it takes time, and there's an experience that must happen. So I enjoy the intervention part of it too. I'm working with a couple families right now here in the Valley. And
when you do this, do you find, like, you go in there with the overall family, but there's kind of a drawn in focus on one person, and you find there might be other addictions spread out more, maybe alcoholism over here and pornography over here or something.
Yeah.
There's other addictions spread out against other or amongst the rest of the family, so you end up treating multiple people through one projected,
Yeah. So everybody in the model, everybody has a goal. So you don't go in there and just point at one person and say you're going to change. The entire, I like to think of it like inertia, right? If there's an object floating through space, that's the family.
Mm-hmm.
And if something were to change the trajectory of that family, anybody who changes in that family can change that state of inertia a little bit. So we might be going in there for a 17-year-old son that's on heroin, but if the dad makes a commitment to put his family first and put his business second, that's a change in that trajectory. Mm-hmm. And that affects that 17-year-old, and that affects the whole family. So when you go in, there's, I've been called to come in to work with a family, and the individuals that we're working with now in that family aren't even the people that we were called for.
So you might have been called in for an addiction, and now you're working on an economic health.
Yeah, we're doing a budget for the family business.
Yeah. Because
the addiction's been a drain on the family business, right? So the thing is too, earlier you said treatment. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. With my role is to help identify the what's going on here. I kind of facilitate the meetings, but then I invite individuals with the assistance of the family to get further help if they need it. If the mom's struggling with being adopted, we help her find a therapist, and then I get a release of information with that therapist. So everybody's on the same page. Anybody that's involved, if there's something that's outside of my lane, I'll help connect them with resources. But then I know the next meeting, the needed information. It's important that the therapist knows that I'm working with the family, and that I know that she made it to her therapist appointment.
Is it hard to get buy-in from the family? Or do they usually fall?
It comes and goes.
Okay.
It comes in waves and plateaus. So when you go in there, there's usually a lot of interest. And then what I've seen after a few months, depending on the progress, sometimes people start to get a little irritated, like this is just redundant.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you see a little victory or something happens and you have an amazing, very connecting meeting and people. So I have everybody sign a commitment basically that the network, the support network will continue to come to the meetings and support everybody in the family for the duration of 6 months. And if they stop coming to the meetings, we call them and we do our best to get them there. But throughout, it's strength in numbers. Dude, the thing that's so cool about this is families. There's nothing stronger than families.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. You guys were in the military, right? What branches were you guys in?
Army.
Air Force.
Army and Air Force.
One of us was in the military. The other guy got money from Uncle Sam.
So I don't know much about the Air Force or the military. I've always wanted to. I always felt like I would have excelled had I joined when I was like 19. I had an eye injury, and I don't know how that would have affected me, but I've always craved battle, and maybe you guys are looking at me thinking you wouldn't say that if you've been where we've been.
At 19, I think, yeah, I think most 19-year-olds do that, but man, after your first couple of them,
You're like, no, it's not. It's
a
for
young
the
man's
birds.
game.
Yeah,
So
I never had to see battle, so I was lucky.
I always think about the world, though, the world as we know it. What are some of the strongest organizations that we know of? Like,
Well-
if crap really hits the fan, who's going to have that stroke? Who's going to have that energy and that knowledge to pull us through it, right?
Well, I'm a firm believer that your family's everything. That you keep your family close and you keep it tight. Because
Yeah.
we could go deeper into it, but even the military would fall apart.
Yeah.
Look at what happened during our Civil War. It split our military branches in half. So I don't know if there's family and then friends.
Even families right now, like you guys, I'm not as close as I used to be with some people in my family, but I know if something were to happen, all these people running around in this valley with severed relationships,
Mm-hmm.
if they couldn't get gas, like they'd be hooking back up within a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey man, how you doing? Things are getting tough. I'm sorry. Like these units would start to develop again. And the strength that I bring into a family is their own strength. We identify those intergenerational strengths because they're going through an addiction right now. But what did they go through 200 years ago when grandpa migrated from England or when grandpa went to Vietnam or all these things that they've gone through, but yet they're still there.
Mm-hmm.
That's way bigger than some little addiction, than some miscommunication, than some finances.
Yeah.
You
Well, and addictions, the studies show that addicted people always have a trauma that they haven't settled with in their past. And that's a big thing. Laura asked another question. Do you offer inpatient treatment at this time? And are you familiar with the other treatment centers in Tooele County?
Yeah, we offer inpatient treatment in Mount Pleasant.
Okay.
And I'm familiar with Bonneville Family Practice. We work together from time to time. I'm familiar a little bit with Warrior Spirit. I know they're out here. I believe they're native based. I'm not sure exactly how that works.
I believe they're subsidized and paid for by the native tribes.
The tribe.
Yeah, but they accept everyone. They don't have a lot of their teachings and treatment center around a lot of the culture, but I don't think they turn anyone away.
Yeah.
Regardless of your nationality or I don't know if that's the correct term.
I think there's a couple more. I'm not familiar with we don't do medication assisted treatment like Bonneville does.
Okay.
They'll do if somebody's struggling with withdrawals, they'll put them on Suboxone.
That's my family doctor. I didn't even know they did that stuff.
Yeah, they're great guys actually. Like I haven't met them yet, but I've worked with their receptionist a couple times, and we we work with a lot of the same people. Those are our people.
So you
Yeah.
refer your people down to them for
Sometimes
the
like,
medication side.
yeah, well, I mean, if you come in with like the interventions, there's just, for me, like, I would rather have the person stay in the family unit and get better if they can, rather than just jump into inpatient. So if like they want to go get a Vivitrol shot, that means for 30 days, if they smoke heroin or shoot heroin, it's not going to give them any response.
Really?
It's a blocker.
There's a shot that makes heroin
It's
useless?
called Vivitrol, and it makes you sick if you drink alcohol too.
Really?
And Bonneville Family Practice does that. So
That's probably a knee-deep voluntary shot. I mean, to get the courts to force that on you, I imagine.
So I don't know if the courts, I don't know if that's happening. This is,
That'd have to be drastic for the courts to
Yeah, I
force
don't
something
think-
like that
Have
on
you ever seen a patient in alcohol withdrawal in a hospital?
not in the
Uh,
hospital, but I've seen
yeah.
someone do the funky chicken on the concrete.
Alcohol withdrawal, when they have to withdraw, is the most dangerous.
Sure.
I remember when I used to work in the hospitals, these guys, we'd have to tie them to the freaking bed.
Well, they
Just seizing and
it's a killer.
It would look like possession. It
Yeah.
was some scary stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would imagine heroin can't be that much different. I don't know. I don't recall dealing with heroin over withdrawals or anything, but
I don't think it's as dangerous,
No.
but it's definitely
They
not,
just give a healthy 6-month shit. I mean, sorry.
not as enjoyable. I've been
Um,
through it a few times.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's not enjoyable, but alcohol is a killer. That one, the people are knee deep into that because alcohol it shuts off certain, I'm shooting off my hip here. It shuts off chemical makers in your body, chemical makers that keep you alive. And the alcohol replaces those. And when you take that away, I mean, it's been known to shut people down, like kill them.
mm-hmm.
And I've never seen alcohol one. I've seen heroin. I have seen methamphetamine. And I think that's it. I've never seen cocaine. But those are the only two people coming off of a bender that I've seen. And it's rough.
Yeah, the most dangerous
When the-
ones are. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When the intestines turn back on heroin, though, that folds people up quick. It's,
It's interesting how different chemicals react in our bodies, isn't it?
oh yeah. Yeah, that one's rough. All right. Laura's our big, she's our winning customer tonight. Skull Valley Health Clinic offers part-time treatment as well.
Where are they at? Skull Valley?
Yeah, I think they're right down there by, I'd be shooting off the hip if I said, but I think they're down there by the driver's license division.
Yeah. So I don't know how, and I've found this generally to be the case with everyone in the industry or with addiction recovery. It's a team. It's all a family. Whether you're Dr. Green at Bonneville Family or so-and-so at Warrior Spirit, like there's no, everybody's willing to work together and network. And sometimes our program, and we do a lot of guided imagery, like visualization.
Mm-hmm.
Some people struggle with that. They might do better with a 12-step.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, if someone's really looking for assistance, and if they come to you guys and maybe the tempo's different than they can handle, or they actually need more of a sterner, I don't want to say prison-like setting, but more of a setting
strict
like
discipline.
No, you're exactly right. Like
they
there's-
might need that. Where yours sounds like yours is they have to dig deep and rely on themselves from the go with you guys a little more. Whereas some places they take you in and lock you in essentially.
I think it depends on the situation, but I think you're right. Generally speaking, the inpatient program in Mount Pleasant, the door's open. If you want to leave, there's the door.
Yeah. and
But as
that's-
adults, I mean, nobody can actually, other than the jails or prisons, can keep you.
Mhm.
It's kidnapping.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they
she
can't
was-
put you on an island and say you must survive for 20 days without drugs. You know.
Well, you just
I'm sure
drop
some countries can though.
drop them off. Well, some countries. I mean, we know what China did with their users. I mean, took them out to the street, shot them behind the ear, and the family had to figure out how to bury him.
Mm.
You know,
It's
so,
interesting when we look. I'm interested in other countries and how they've. I know we haven't got things right with our war on drugs. I know that.
no. I think we should end the war on drugs and turn all the money spent on it over to treatment.
Treatment
All of it.
programs. Yeah.
No more. I think if a cop picks up a user, he no longer takes him to a jail and processes him. He doesn't even cuff him. He puts him in the back of the car, drives him to treatment. I think the cop should have a pamphlet and say, circle the one you want me to drop you off at.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we're going there. Going in that direction.
Yeah, it's slow. She was saying that Skull Valley health clinic offers the Vivital and Suboxone. Yeah, and they're right across from Maverick. So that might be another tool in your belt that you can get a hold of and help you out. But we're coming up on time. Give you some last words here. I just want to say it's awesome that through you coming out of recovery, you found a passion for a new thing to help other people out. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. It's
Really
been a plague in my life. It's been a burden. Years I wished it would have gone away. If you don't feed the voice doesn't go away. It just starts kicking and screaming, and if you got a voice inside of you, and if you're not feeding it, that which we resist persists.
Mm-hmm.
So come to MATR, you'll learn a lot of little sayings like that that'll keep you up at night.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's great. So Friday at 10 to 2 across from the county building in the strip mall. There's an old bank there. It's the building on the corner of Southwest and Main, southwest of Main and Vine, right?
I don't know. It's 58 South Main.
Yeah, Southwest. Vine is 0, so 58 South Main.
There's a bus stop right next to the road. If you head south on Main Street, you turn off of Vine and you head south. 200 feet on your right side, there's going to be a bus stop. My office door is right there. You're going to need to park in the back.
Okay, so now your door faces Main Street. Is your door the old Peak Firearms shop, or?
I think so. It's right there on the
Right on
front.
the corner.
So Caldwell Law faces Main Street, and then we're right next to it.
Okay, so you're the original Peak Firearms that
Yeah.
face the alleyway.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I know exactly where you are. So head down there on Friday, support them. If you know of a family who's in need or your family's in need, go down there.
Take that first step.
Yeah, get it done. And thanks for coming in, man. I knew when Kai lined us up, I was like, I know who that is.
I'd heard your
Vince's
name
friend.
before, and I was trying to think if.
Have you ever heard of the Tooele Happy Hour before this?
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah, it's been a minute, but I like I said, I just moved back to town.
Mhm.
But I'd heard about it a while ago. But this has been good. It was interesting to just walk right in here, having never met you guys, and
Yeah, well,
And
I
do
knew
it,
you when
so-
you were a little guy.
see,
Yeah.
you
But
look familiar.
anytime you need word put out, even if it's just a 5-minute stop in, let us know.
I appreciate you guys, especially pulling it off. Just like we did real quick tonight.
Well, we need to get the word out there.
Yeah.
We're flexible like Gumby.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks.
And I'm sure we'll see you again.
Okay. Look forward to it.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. We'll see
you.
you next week.